I don't know. I didn't even have any coffee yet. I'm having my first cup right now at 5 p.m. So this is maybe a bad idea. It might be a terrible idea.
Somewhere on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Cue the music!
Cue the music!
Coming to you live from the great indoors of New York City, I'm Bryan Teoh. Joining me today from Green Bay, Wisconsin is Kevin Macleod.
yeah!
Together, we'd like to welcome you to Composerish, where we discuss issues facing modern working composers. Sometimes. I was wondering, there is a certain disconnect when edits come down the pipeline. Most scores that I think we work on end up having to have edits, and like early on, you get over that ego. Of like,
right.
You're like, yeah, you see me to do edits, I'll do them. But there are some times where like I feel like I really disagree.
Yep.
Overall, this is a sad film, and right now, this music sounds really scary, and I think it should be sad. I'm like, yeah, but this film just drops you in the center of the action. It's supposed to be kind of confusing, and inevitably, the scene ends up being kind of scary. It's not even supposed to trick you into thinking that it's heartwarming in a little bit. It is a scary scene, and you need scary music to sell that feeling. And they're like, yeah, but just in general, it's not that, though. It's the film isn't about that, and I don't want that to be their first impression. It's like, because that's not how it works. I understand that's how it should work, or that's how you want it to work, but that's just not what happens.
Man.
So there's a certain point where it's like, I understand, I can kind of give my 2 cents, and then inevitably, I'll just end up doing whatever it is that's asked of me because that's my job.
Right.
But how much pushback do you think you should give, especially when you really believe it's going to make a better film if you do what should be done?
All right. In general, my rule of thumb is you get one fight. You get one good fight.
Okay.
And
where you push back and make your case?
You push back, you do everything else. The changes to this one are probably going to take a little longer. How do I make their vision work, right? How do I make it okay and still have them win? We're only in it for the audience.
Sure.
That is the only thing, unless it's a directorial wank job. Is that a industry term?
It should be if it isn't.
Yeah. So if it's a directorial wank job, you just put in your time and you just fucking do it. No worries. But yeah, I think you get one good fight per project, and most people appreciate you unless you're just terrible about it. But what you do is give them exactly what they want, and make sure that it doesn't work.
I'm convinced that in some cases with some previous projects, sometimes people are just listening to the music too carefully.
Right.
They're paying actual attention to what's going on sound-wise instead of just like letting it wash over them and watching the film and just trying to make sure that everything works. I have a hard time trying to tell people how to do it because you never want to over-explain things. But basically, my feeling is this. If you watch the film and nothing sticks out as being particularly wrong, it's probably good.
Oh my God, absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
If you can just watch it and you're like, oh, I didn't really notice anything, then it's like, well, then good.
Yes.
Good, that's good to go then. Like,
Absolutely.
Because I'm getting like beat by beats, like this is okay, but then this ends weird here. And I'm like, this isn't a complete piece of music, right? I'm not writing a song.
No.
In fact, the fact that this cue didn't end and the one note kind of just trailed off, that kind of bleeds into the next scene perfectly.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to fight too much. I don't want it to come across that I'm hurt by any means. Yeah, I'll change it, but I'm not convinced that you know what you're talking about.
They hired you for a reason.
Right.
Let them know what your reason is. If I've pushed back and I was wrong, I learned a lot more about the piece and then changed it to reflect what I didn't know.
Sure.
There's no reason to not push back on this, is what I'm saying right now.
I think part of the problem is that the film that I'm speaking about specifically right now did have a temp score, and it was laid in by somebody who doesn't really do music. They just kind of put stuff in there to have sound.
Yeah.
And I think they got too used to like hearing that there.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, there needed to be sound there. I think they missed the mark on what the emotional intent was. But now everybody involved in the production pretty much has watched this so many times with this temp in there that it's hard for people to imagine something else.
Right.
I guess that's probably something that I don't do, but I need to start putting into my early conversations when I deliver drafts and just say like, basically, if you can listen to this and nothing sticks out as being wrong, then it's all good. like what we do, please do us a favor by going to the Apple Podcast app and subscribing to Composerish.
I have been starting, the last few tracks of mine have been experimenting with binaural sound staging.
Sure.
It's stereo, but it with your head.
But that's only if you're wearing headphones.
No, it is not. It's harder to tell if it's behind me when I'm using my monitors in space, but you can absolutely have things go from in front of you to above you, and you can automate that, and it sounds like it.
How?
Yeah.
You can do that for your setup.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get into a different room and the speakers are at a different space, like they're spatialized differently, it's going to mess that all up, isn't it?
It's going to mess it up a little bit, but the effect is still going to be there. And if you have it in headphones, the effect is going to be enormous.
Yeah, binaural effects were made for headphones.
Yeah.
I was talking about this early on when binaural mixing first became a thing, because I was like, I know that you won't necessarily get the sense that this tic-tac box is going to be shaking and moving up your arm and shoulder or whatever, because that was like an early recording that I had heard of that.
Yep.
I get that you probably won't hear that, but it does change the actual quality of the sound, meaning can you use these as techniques to like separate the stereo feel?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're like, no. As soon as you're not using headphones, the illusion is gone. In fact, I think you said that because I asked you about it.
Well, I am going back on myself because I'm having a blast with this.
Aha!
And I do not mix in headphones. I mean, it is changing the balance. It's changing the left-right timing because that's kind of how we spatialize things.
Yeah.
And I got some ideas. For some extreme proof of concepts. I've got a proof of concept piece on my imagination board. I have an imagination board where I was going to do an 8-bit bleepy thing with very discrete synthesizers coming out of AM radio speakers in very specific points in space, and then have those points like move.
Huh, that's cool.
Do some binaural mixing with 4 to 8 different bleeping things in specific space. Because those are the simplest things. They'll be the easiest for your brain to recognize where they're coming from.
I can see that being like really cool in a VR situation too. I mean, that's kind of, I think, why a lot of the binaural mixing and spatialization techniques have become really huge, is because VR is kind of starting to become a real thing that people actually use.
It's really only in video games where we have like point precision audio emitters, I think. You know, where like there's a water fountain in the center of the town, and when you get closer to it, you can hear the water fountain, and you turn your head and it's over to your right, you turn your head and it's over to the left. Video games are where it gives us that immersive thing right now, but I'm thinking of doing it just as a technique in anything. And
I'd be interested to see how it turns out without headphones, because again, I haven't really had too much of a binaural experience with speakers.
Okay.
So I'll watch stuff on YouTube. I love watching ASMR videos and stuff like that. And binaural microphone techniques are a huge thing. A lot of people have like those mannequin heads with like the microphones inside the ears or whatever, and they'll do like sounds that are kind of swirling around your heads. Oddly enough, when I'm listening through headphones even, it always sounds like the sounds are kind of behind me. I can get from the left to right, and I can definitely get when they're like right next to an ear. It sounds like they're actually there, like further away from my head than the actual headphones are. But when they're passing in front of you, I always get the sense that they're actually behind me.
Brian, do you have oddly shaped ears?
I don't think
I don't
so.
know either. Like you'd think they get it right.
I've been told they're small, which I didn't know until my current girlfriend apprised me of this fact. She's like, "You got tiny ears." I'm like, do I? Nobody's ever said that. And I would think if they're especially...
I've never noticed.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they were especially tiny, I would have been teased for it growing up, because kids are ruthless, so they can't be that small, but I guess maybe they are. I don't know. So maybe that's it. I don't know. Maybe they're small enough that it'll affect... But I can hear things in real life. Like, I know if they're coming from in front of me.
Yes, of course. But these things are optimized for people with different ear shapes, maybe, who filter things differently. Maybe your behind you doesn't have as much high cutoff as most people's behind them because your ears are smaller. I don't know.
All right, so call it here first then. Who do you think is going to be the first artist who is going to release ear-specific music? Like, I feel like it's going to be either Nine Inch Nails or Radiohead. They're going to, like, you have to send, like, a 3D scan of your ear in, and then they'll spit out, like, an album that is specifically for your head shape. And it'll cost a lot of money because it'll be, like, the deluxe version of that album.
So to build your... Interesting. Yeah, so you take a picture of your ear, and then you put in your noise-canceling earbuds, and it would replicate what you normally hear from the outside.
Yes.
Yeah, that is possible.
Yes.
That is an absolutely possible thing.
And then they'll create an auditory experience of 3D sound of their album specifically for your head.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that is entirely possible. I'm just trying to figure out what musical artist is going to be pretentious enough to go through with it.
Kevin MacLeod.
You're going to do it?
Well, what I can do is put out music that just has like spatial tags in it. You know, put out an 8-channel piece and then just have MIDI-esque data going along saying this should be at this distance, at this volume, pointed in this direction.
Maybe you can release music for different ear types.
Yeah.
And you'll have like searchable terms. So if somebody wants to search for their like music for their chunky ears, you can just like
right.
search up like chunky ear. I've got really short ears. I've got like long lobes or whatever. Like the
right. I
hope this isn't offensive. I've never heard of anybody being offended by ear term shapes, but
or like the cilia in my cochlea. Is that a thing? I don't know. The things in my cochlea are sort of deadened around 4K. So if you could,
you'd have to know that.
If you could boost those up,
maybe like have a game that they play beforehand. So like it's like you'll play different tones, and when you can hear the sound, click the space bar.
There you go. Where do you think the sound is coming from? Point in space.
Yeah.
Beep. Where did this beep come from? All right.
And then the software will automatically orient itself to your head based on that input.
Sure.
That seems actually maybe easier than trying to get like a 3D print of somebody's ear shape or...
I don't know. Taking a picture is pretty easy, and then like taking a test is not.
Taking a picture is easy. Analyzing that picture and making music that's appropriate for it would be more difficult than if like you just gave them a survey in the form of a game.
No. Well, and the survey would be like super correct. Even dealing with deficiencies in hearing and perception, it would be super correct. But like just taking a picture of your ear, I think you just feed them one of like 10 basic ear shapes and they will have a pretty good time. Because we only need to get to 90%. We don't need to get to 100%. It's art. Just the impression. So me and Carrie are doing a thing. Carrie is my assistant / manager assistant. I don't know what she does. She makes sure I do shit. I don't like horror movies. She loves horror movies, and we watched The Shining. And I did a lot of complaining about the score of The Shining. Can you hum some Shining for me? The answer is no.
Yeah.
No one out there can hum any of The Shining.
But I haven't watched it in a very long time either.
Yeah. It's a lot of violins just sawing and drifting, and there's not a lot of notes. There's a few notes here and there.
It is a movie about like a descent into madness.
It is, and I think that should be illustrated. So Carrie's like, oh, well, this is great. Let's do a full film so that you know what happens when I go, yeah, I'm going to do that film.
Oh, wait, you are going to do a full film with Carrie?
We're doing The Shining.
Dang.
I am fully rescoring The Shining.
You didn't want to start with like Paul Blart Mall Cop or something? Or the Gremlins? I don't know. You're starting like, okay, first film, Shining, go.
Yeah, The Shining. Of course this can be done. Because there's so many things, and it is so confusing when you watch it, and the soundtrack can clarify so many things, but it's never used to do that.
See, this is weird, because Kubrick is known for being incredibly detail-oriented with everything.
Yeah. That's what you say.
Deciding to rescore a Kubrick film is like, that's a big matzo ball hanging out there.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Okay, first off, the score happened at a time with technology of the time. And I'm not saying anything bad about Wendy Carlos. I think she did a fine job, but we have way cooler tools now. They had like a couple of jump scare things, which just like didn't coincide by like seconds.
Oh, I see.
And now we have like sub-second. We can reinforce at the moment easily.
You know, I love this. I love that you are able to watch this and be like, nah, it can be better. And people are like, what? How dare you? He's like, nah, it can be better. Like one of my favorite things to do when I was in undergrad is somebody would play me a piece by like Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. And they're like, what'd you think? And I'd just be like, he's a hack. It's like,
it can be better.
It's one of the, I mean, I do that just to be irreverent in general, but like it's not like I necessarily thought that I could write a better piece of music for 4 helicopters and string quartet, but there aren't very many people who are going to have the confidence to be able to say like, yeah, I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it better. So good on you. Just, I think you should.
I don't know if it'll be better. Maybe, maybe not.
Well, but you're not doing it to purposely make it worse.
No. I am doing it because I was so confused during that film. So confused. Like, what is going on?
What I would love is for you to do the score and then show somebody who is like super, super, super into Kubrick.
Oh.
And then hear the reasons of why they thought that the original score was better, because I'm sure they'll think that.
Of course they'll think that, because they've heard the original score 40 times.
Right. But I think that there's things that you think need to be changed from the perspective of a composer. And you say, if I was scoring this movie, I would do this differently, and this is why. And then what I would like to hear is somebody else then defending why doing it the way that it was done was better. Like what symbolic reason could having this like hit being off by a couple seconds, was that intentional or was that a byproduct of the technology of the time?
Had to have been.
And if it was intentional, why would that have been a better decision?
Reinforce whenever you can. Like don't,
I'm with you on that. I'm totally with you. I thought the same thing with There Will Be Blood. When that movie came out, I refused to watch it for ages, and everyone told me, they're like, oh, you're a musician though, you're gonna love it, because the music is amazing. It was done by Johnny Greenwood, and it was like kind of cool music, and they were all like these like squeaky violins and like a lot of like really over the top spectral effects from an orchestra, which was cool. Like I liked it as far as a piece of music went. I thought it was really interesting, but it completely took me out of the moment of any of the scenes that I saw music in. I get it, this is dark and this guy's kind of crazy. Like, we get it, but you don't need to be so over the top. I think actually like a single drone of like a foreboding high violin would actually probably create more tension. But because the music was so in your face, it didn't allow me to feel that sense of like disturbance or fear or anything. It was just too much sound. And yet every single person that I've met, I've to this day yet to meet somebody else that tells me it's like, yeah, the music wasn't that good in that movie. So it's like either I'm being radical, maybe I'm the one that sees that the emperor is not wearing any clothing, or
correct.
Or
you are correct.
I'm completely missing something, and it wouldn't be the first time. So
no, it can absolutely be made better. There's nothing in the world that can't be made better, with the exception of removing soundtracks. Like sometimes removing.
Everyone loves Johnny Greenwood.
I mean, there's things that I can't imagine things better than. You know, like a Mozart anything. It's like, well, nope. You change any note and it will be worse. I've seen some movies. I don't know. Jurassic Park was pretty good.
That was pretty awesome.
Where like if you change a note,
but it's also a different era. I feel like in that time, the music can be a lot more in your face, and movies were built for that.
Yeah.
Also, at that point, like that was what's his name?
Williams.
Yes, thank you. That was John. I was like, God. That was John Williams at like the height of his career. He was the apex of being John Williams, was probably that movie. And so at that point, they're like, not only are they hiring him because they specifically want that sound, and he's working with a director he's worked with a million times before, so they already have a rapport. Right. But there were several cutout moments where they're like, here, have this gift. We're just going to do wide shots, and we need your music to fill up this space. So it just opens with this helicopter flying over this island, and there's no dialogue or very little dialogue, and it's just you have this overture, and then you have this other scene of like the very famous scene of the camera pulling back, and you see the brontosaurus. Like, it's not a brontosaurus anymore. What are they called? Allosaurus?
Probably
or the-
Brachiosaurus, the
Probably.
big sort of
Yeah, I
like
grew up with
quadruped
when I was
ones.
growing up. They were called Brontosaurus. Dang it!
You're an old man.
I know. Dinosaurs didn't have feathers either. Dang it! They were giant lizards. No, the long neck dinosaur, Brachiosaurus, whatever, jumps up on his hind legs, grabs some like leaves off the tree, and you have that like really iconic Jurassic Park moment.
Yeah,
but like. Most people aren't writing movies like that anymore. They're not filming movies like that anymore.
Yeah. Has wonder left the world?
Yes. We're in the gritty, dark era of movie making.
Aww.
Everything is bomb.
We need new things to wonder about.
Bomb.
You know what? I'm not opposed to the bomb.
I love them
because there's software and it's effective.
What software do you use for your Brahms?
My Brahms, I use Cinesample Brass. They have a low brass ensemble patch, which is fantastic.
Interesting. I've used the Hollywood Brass, their low brass section, and then I'll usually reinforce that with like bass drums and storm drums and
whatever solo instruments seem to be lacking from it. You know, if you need a double on the high on a trombone or low on a tuba or a Wagnerian tuba or whatever.
Reinforce it with some synths.
Oh, yeah. I always forget about that. I should do that more.
Yeah.
Low sine waves are your friends.
I use them all the time, but it does make mixing a little bit more difficult because the frequencies get really chaotic down there. So you're rescoring Kubrick. That'll be awesome. When do you expect to be done with that?
So Carrie thought we'd be done in a week.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh no. No. It's like we did the original spotting of it. I'm like, no, we watched the movie and noted the scenes.
Yeah.
And now we need to go back. And now we need to talk about who is in each of these scenes. Because especially in this film, you have a couple of unseen characters.
Yeah.
You've got Tony, which is the alter ego of the little boy, Danny. And you've got the general thing. I don't even know how to describe it. The hotel/labyrinth is an entity. It is a character. It never moves, but it does act.
Yeah. It's got like a foreboding sense of doom to it.
Does it? Or is the hotel the hero? Because at the end, it kills Jack in the labyrinth, at least in the Kubrick film. I know, not in the book.
Yeah, Stephen King has been very angry about that.
In the book, the hotel bit off more than it could chew, made Jack crazy enough, and then the whole thing exploded with Jack in it. So it was a different thing in the book, whereas the hotel is just fine at the end of the movie. It just killed Jack.
Or reclaimed him. I don't know. There's like this weird time warp thing going on too.
He's always been the caretaker, right?
And then you actually have to start like laying things in and timing scenes, and this is going to be fun.
Right.
And I say that sarcastically because I think it's going to be. I mean, it's really interesting.
We've
to go
all
through that.
been here.
Yeah, it's really interesting to go through that process when you're actually the musician that's doing it. But I think for somebody just to watch it happening, I think it's going to be really, really arduous.
Oh yes, no, it takes time. So how long do you think it's going to be? I'm like honestly, to do this the right way, like Lord of the Rings way, like 3 months. It's about 3 months.
So I think it'll be interesting to track progress on this project. Since it's going to take a while, we should get updates.
Yes, I will give you updates.
Maybe get a little soundbite or something, like what Carrie thinks of the process.
Yeah, we can absolutely bring Carrie in.
This would be great. I think it'll be really great to hear your thoughts while you're working on this. Maybe hear from Carrie to hear what she's learning about the process and her thoughts about everything that goes into it. And then, you know, we can have a cool down. We'll make maybe the film available somewhere so people can see it, or maybe like a riff tracks type thing where you drop in the sound.
I will definitely export all of the music. You know, you might have to mute your television. Most of the scenes are clean, though. Most of the scenes are very little dialogue.
And then we can get maybe like a post reaction from people. Either find like a Kubrick nut or white whale time. It would be lovely to be able to get Wendy Carlos to come on and talk. Although I don't know if I don't know about you. I would not want to have to face the original composer and be like, so I decided to replace your music.
I think Wendy's fine. Wendy, love you. So many levels. You're an inspiration.
One of the great film composers of our age for a reason. So
right. Name 10 composers. She's on the list.
Yeah. Pioneer. Cue the outro!
Cue the outro! Oh, God!
I'd like to thank everyone for listening. If you have any comments or suggestions of things you'd like to hear us babble on about, please feel free to contact us at composerish@gmail.com. Until next time, keep on writing.